The quiet hum of the ancient refrigerator is your most constant companion now, a mechanical breath in the vast stillness of your small dwelling. Dust motes dance in the solitary shaft of sunlight that dares to pierce the grimy window, each speck a tiny, forgotten universe adrift. You trace the rim of a cold, forgotten mug, the ceramic slick beneath your thumb. Years have carved deep canyons into the landscape of your solitude, each ridge a memory of the life that unraveled, the career that crumbled, the reputation that became a whisper of scorn. Seth Corbin, the man who let him slip away. The words were less a judgment, more a brand, seared into your very being. You had walked away, or perhaps been pushed, from the labyrinth of laws and lies, retreating to this self-imposed exile where the only cases to solve were the crossword puzzles in yesterday's newspaper. It's a sound you rarely hear, a jarring intrusion. You eye it warily, a predator sensing an unfamiliar scent. It rings again, insistent, pulling you from the quiet contemplation of your disgrace. With a sigh that feels centuries old, you lift the receiver. Corbin, you state, your voice a gravelly echo of its former authority. Seth? It's the detective. You still around? The voice on the other end is strained, a tight wire stretched taut. It's uncanny. I know you're out, but this feels like yours. Your grip tightens on the receiver. Yours. The word sends a jolt through you, a spark in the long-dead embers of your investigative instinct. What are you talking about? A body. He was discovered this morning, in a private bank vault below a historic building. Old money, old secrets. But that's not it. It's the staging, the precision, the signature. It's just like the Van Doren case, Seth. Exactly like it. The Van Doren case. The words hit you like a physical blow, stealing the air from your lungs. The victim, the meticulous arrangement, the baffling lack of forensic evidence. A ghost's touch. It was an impossible puzzle, and it had been your undoing. No. You breathe, the sound barely audible. It can't be. It is. Too many details match. The placement of the coins around the head, the single white orchid, the untouched security system. Even the way the vault door was left slightly ajar, almost an invitation. Only someone intimately familiar with the Van Doren file would know these specifics. Or the phantom killer, the one you had failed to corner, the specter that haunted your every dream, was back. Or perhaps had never truly left, merely hibernated, waiting for the right moment to resurface, to mock your failure once more. Where? You demand, the question a sudden raw urgency in your throat. The guard building, corner of Elm and 4th, the one with the gargoyles. You know it. You do. You hang up before the detective can offer another word, before he can see the flicker of a familiar fire in your eyes. You move with a sudden, uncharacteristic speed, shedding the inertia of years. Your hand finds the worn leather of your old holster, empty now, but the sensation of its familiar weight is a ghost on your hip. You pull on a faded jacket, the fabric still carrying the faint scent of stale coffee and forgotten dust. The world outside your window seems to sharpen, the muted colors gaining a sudden, vibrant edge. The drive is a blur of city lights and the persistent drone of traffic, a stark contrast to the quiet of your apartment. Your mind races, dissecting, analyzing, already sifting through the phantom details of the Van Doren file. The old case notes, the witness statements, the dead ends that had choked off every lead. Now they were not just echoes of failure. They were potential keys. You arrive at the guard building, a monolith of granite and history, its gargoyles leering down from the cornices like ancient guardians. Blue and red lights pulse in the damp evening air, painting the street in a macabre disco. Uniformed officers mill about, their faces grim, their movements precise. You flash your old, expired badge, a reflex, a habit, to the young officer guarding the perimeter. He eyes it, then you, with a mix of suspicion and recognition. "Detective Corbin?" he asks, his voice hesitant. "They said you might... you're not just looking." You cut him off, your gaze already sweeping the scene, absorbing the details. The air is thick with the scent of damp stone and something else. Something metallic and faintly sweet that you know all too well. You push through the throng of officials, your eyes scanning for the detective who called you. He spots you, his expression a mixture of relief and trepidation, and gestures towards the imposing oak doors. "This way, Seth." The descent is like a journey backward in time, each step taking you deeper into the earth, deeper into a past you thought you had buried. Finally, you reach it. The threshold of the crime scene. A reinforced door, an antechamber, and then the heavy circular portal of a vault, its massive steel door standing slightly ajar, just as the detective had described. And there it is. Your gaze sweeps across the room, past the uniformed figures, past the forensic specialists meticulously documenting every particle. Your eyes lock onto the central tableau. A figure lies on the cold floor, still and stark. Around the head, a meticulous circle of antique gold coins gleams under the artificial light. Nestled beside the body, a single pristine white orchid, its petals unfurling in silent accusation. The hair on your arm stands on end. It's an exact replica. The killer you failed to catch, the ghost that stole your life, has returned. And in this moment, looking at the meticulous horror laid out before you, a fierce, almost forgotten determination ignites within you. This time, you will not fail. This time, the phantom will have a face. Each step down the worn marble stairs resonates, a hollow echo swallowed by the deepening silence. The descent is a slow, deliberate surrender to the past, a journey into the very bedrock of memory. Your guide, a junior officer whose name you can't quite recall, keeps pace, his footsteps lighter than yours, less burdened. He glances back occasionally, a flicker of apprehension in his eyes, as if unsure whether to respect your reputation or fear its shadow. You ignore him, your gaze fixed on the diminishing light, the deepening gloom. This is where the world goes to forget, to store its most guarded treasures and its most unspeakable truths. Finally, the stairs give way to a narrow corridor, unadorned and uninviting. Fluorescent tubes hum overhead, casting a sterile, sickly glow on the concrete floor and bare stone walls. The corridor terminates at an immense circular door, crafted from burnished steel, its surface scarred with the history of countless openings and closings. With a grunt, he inserts a key into the massive lock, turning it with a metallic shriek that grates on your nerves. The tumblers click with an almost ceremonial slowness, each sound a deliberate, unavoidable step towards whatever awaits you. Rows of safety deposit boxes, their brass fronts dulled by time, line the walls, silent sentinels guarding untold riches. But it is not the boxes that draw your eye. In the center of the cavernous space, illuminated by a single harsh work light, stands a figure. It's the detective. His face etched with a weariness that speaks of too many late nights and too many grim discoveries. He turns as you enter, his expression a complex mix of relief and resentment. "Seth," he states, his voice flat, devoid of its usual booming authority. "Took you long enough?" "I wasn't aware I was on the clock," you respond, your voice a low rasp, a deliberate counterpoint to his impatience. You scan the vault, taking in the makeshift arrangement. A small table, 2 metal chairs, and on the table, a collection of items meticulously laid out. This isn't about the clock, Seth. This is about pattern. The detective gestures towards the table. You remember the Cinder case, don't you? The one that ended your career? His tone is a deliberate barb, meant to provoke, but you merely meet his gaze, unwavering. Your eyes drift to the objects on the table. A faded photograph of a young woman, her smile frozen in time. Beside it, a single delicate silver locket, its surface tarnished. And then, a small, meticulously folded piece of parchment, secured beneath a clear evidence cover. The air catches in your throat. "This is Maria Valdez," the detective continues, his voice lowering, the animosity momentarily receding into the gravity of the situation. "Found 3 days ago. Same circumstances. Abandoned factory, East Side docks. No forced entry, no struggle, just gone. And then found like this." He gestures to the locket. The locket was left at the scene, clutched in her hand. The detective picks up the evidence cover, revealing the parchment. The Cinder case. Years ago. The victim, a young artist, found in a deserted warehouse. Her signature piece, a charcoal drawing clutched in her hand, and attached to it, a similar piece of parchment bearing the identical phrase, "The ash remembers what the fire forgets." "It's the same," you utter, the words tasting like ash in your mouth. Identical, the inscription, the locket, even the type of parchment. "Exactly," the detective says, a grim satisfaction in his tone. "And that's why you're here, Seth. No one else saw the pattern, not back then. They called it a one-off, a deranged artist's final statement. But you knew. You said it was the beginning. And now, it looks like you were right." He pauses, allowing the weight of his words to settle between you. "Your tainted perspective," the detective adds, the barb returning. But this time, it holds a desperate plea. "We've got nothing. No witnesses, no forensics beyond the obvious. Just this signature, and you're the only one who recognized it before." You run a hand over your jaw, the stubble rough against your palm. The memories flood back. The dismissive colleagues, the internal investigation, the gnawing certainty that you were right even as your career crumbled around you. The phantom killer, a specter that haunted your waking hours and invaded your dreams. But the past, like an unquiet grave, refused to stay buried. "What do you want from me?" you ask, the question a battle against the rising tide of your own history. "To tell us what you see, what we're missing," the detective urges, his eyes fixed on yours, searching for any flicker of the old fire. You were obsessed with the details, the ritual. This isn't just a murder, Seth. It's a statement. The words burn into your mind, a brand of recognition. The determination that had been dormant for so long, buried beneath layers of resignation, begins to stir. You had failed before. You had lost everything. A chance to right a profound wrong. The determination, a coal long buried beneath the ash of your disgrace, now flares with an incandescent heat. The locket, cool against your palm, the parchment's delicate script, they are not mere echoes from the past. They are clarion calls. You failed once. You watched the phantom slip away, taking your name, your badge, your very sense of self. But this new whisper of old horrors, this chilling echo across the years, demands a reckoning. The killer, it seems, never truly left. The chill of the night air bites at your exposed skin as you move through the city's hushed arteries. Your destination is not a brightly lit precinct, nor an official archive. Those doors are closed to you, sealed by the very failure that now drives you. Its facade, a stoic testament to an era of gaslight and horse-drawn carriages, looms over you, its stone carved with the solemn faces of forgotten patrons. A hushed knock, a specific rhythm known only to a select few, brings an ancient hinge to life. The door, heavy with the weight of decades, groans open. The archivist, a stooped figure with eyes like chipped flint, regards you over spectacles perched precariously on his nose. He grants you passage with a silent nod, a gesture born of an unspoken understanding, a shared history that predates your professional demise. You descend into the cool, still air of the vault. The scent of aged paper, of metallic dust, and the faint, sweet decay of time itself fills your lungs. It is a mausoleum of secrets, a repository of lives meticulously catalogued and then forgotten. Rows of steel cabinets, each one a tomb of documents, stand sentinel in the dim light. The air is thick with the past, a palpable presence that presses against your skin. Your fingers, guided by a memory etched deep, find the specific drawer, the one containing the remnants of the case that shattered your world. The files are thinner than you remember, a stark testament to the lack of evidence, the elusive nature of the killer. You pull out the folders, placing them on a heavy, scarred oak table. The manila covers are brittle, their labels faded. Corbin, Seth, Case 73A, unsolved. You begin your meticulous excavation. Each page, each photograph, each typewritten report is handled with the reverence of an archaeologist unearthing a lost civilization. The old case photos, stark and grainy, portray the victims with an unsettling familiarity. Then, you retrieve the newer files, the ones you acquired through discreet channels, a quiet plea to a former colleague who still believes in the ghost of the detective you once were. These are raw, fresh, still smelling faintly of official printer ink. You place them beside the old. The initial comparison yields no grand revelations, only the reinforcement of the terrifying similarity. The killer's signature is unmistakable, a cruel artistry of death. Yet, you persist, your eyes scanning for the minute, the overlooked, the detail dismissed as irrelevant. You pore over the forensic reports, the witness statements, the sketches of the crime scenes. You're looking for the ghost in the machine, the single misplaced cog. Hours bleed into an indistinguishable blur. Your gaze drifts over the old crime scene photographs again. A close-up of the victim's hand, frozen in rigor. Your breath catches. You lean closer, your brow furrowed. There, on the ring finger of the victim's left hand, a faint, almost imperceptible abrasion. You remember the similar mark on the newest victim, described as a superficial scratch, possibly from jewelry. Incidental? Your mind races. It's too specific, too consistent. You recall the locket, the one you now carry, the delicate filigree. Could it be? You compare the location and nature of the abrasions across both sets of photographs. The angle, the depth, the very shape of the mark. They are almost identical. Not a random scratch, not an incidental post-mortem injury. This is a deliberate, consistent detail, a subtle signature left by the killer. It suggests a brief, forceful contact, perhaps during the act of securing the victim, or a final, intimate gesture before departure. Reveal discovery. The original investigators, including you, had focused on the larger, more obvious aspects of the crime. The ligature, the positioning, the absence of forced entry. This tiny abrasion, dismissed as negligible, now screams at you. It implies a specific action, a consistent element of the killer's ritual that was overlooked, hidden in plain sight. This is a killer who has been operating with impunity, mocking the very system you once served, leaving a breadcrumb trail so subtle, so easily dismissed, that it took years and another tragedy for your eyes to truly open. You missed this. You missed this. And now, armed with this newfound understanding, the phantom doesn't feel quite so invisible. The game has changed. The stark light of your desk lamp bleeds into the late-night quiet, illuminating the glossy surfaces of the photographs spread before you. The angle, the depth, the very shape of. A recurring pattern, unmistakable now, not incidental. Never incidental. Your mind, a labyrinth of old cases and forgotten faces, begins to connect the phantom lines. The locket, a relic from the first victim of your career's undoing, suddenly feels less like a burden and more like a key. You recall the initial reports, the inventory lists. The locket was found clutched in the hand of the young woman, a piece of jewelry whose true ownership was never fully established, swallowed by the chaos of a botched investigation. A name surfaces, a ghost from the archives. Elias Thorne, the original victim's elderly solicitor, now long retired, a man who once managed her modest estate. You remember the meticulous records he kept, a fastidious attention to detail that always bordered on the obsessive. If anyone knew the true provenance of that locket, or if any other items of significance were stored away, it would be him. Her voice, a tired sigh through the static, confirms your hunch. Thorne's files, she recalls, mentioned a small safety deposit box. A private arrangement, she says, a peculiar request from the victim's family years ago, long before the tragedy. The box, she believes, is still maintained. The building looms, an edifice of weathered stone and forgotten grandeur. The security guard, a man whose eyes hold the weariness of decades spent watching the world pass by, recognizes your name. The vault manager, a woman with precise movements and an unnervingly calm demeanor, processes your request with dispassionate efficiency. Your old badge, though tarnished by disuse, still carries a ghost of its former authority. She leads you to a designated alcove, where a polished steel box, smaller than you anticipated, awaits. With a click and a soft hiss, the manager slides the drawer open. Dust motes dance in the beam of her small flashlight. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed legal papers and a faded tintype photograph of a stern-faced couple, lies a small wooden music box. It is no larger than your palm, its surface smooth, worn by countless touches. It was another item listed in the original inventory, a trinket of sentimental value, but one that held no discernible connection to the crime. Your fingers brush its cool, aged wood, and then you see it. A fresh scratch. Not a gouge, but a delicate, precise abrasion, mirroring the intricate swirls of the locket's filigree. It is too new, too deliberate to be a mere coincidence of age or storage. The air in the vault grows impossibly thin. This box, this music box, has not been touched in years, certainly not since the original investigation. Someone put this mark here. Someone accessed this vault. Someone knew you would come looking. This isn't just about the past. It's about the now. The killer is not merely resurfacing. They are watching. They are aware of your pursuit, your renewed interest. This is a message, a taunt left specifically for you. The music box, an item of such minor consequence in the original case, now hums with a silent, menacing significance. You turn the box over in your hands, your gaze fixed on the perfectly replicated mark. The killer knew you would connect the locket to the abrasions. They knew you would trace its history. And they knew precisely where to leave their next breadcrumb. The sheer audacity, the calculated precision, sends a shiver down your spine. This isn't a random act. This is a direct challenge. Anything else, Seth? The vault manager's voice slices through the heavy quiet, bringing you back to the present. You shake your head slowly, your eyes still fixed on the music box. No, this is all. You close the box, its wood feeling impossibly heavy in your grip. The cold metal of the locket in your pocket now feels like a burning ember. The killer isn't just playing a game. They're inviting you to play their game, on their terms. And they've just moved the pieces onto your board. The stakes have just become impossibly personal. The filigree, a delicate scar upon the skin, held your gaze in the stark wash of the desk lamp. Each photograph, a silent scream frozen in time, whispered of a singular artistry and violence. You had traced the pattern through the long, quiet hours, the dawn breaking outside your window unheeded, your focus absolute. The signature, an intricate series of superficial lacerations, not random, but deliberate. A cruel calligraphy of pain. It was the whisper from the past, the ghost that had cost you everything, now screaming in the present. You ignored it, your eyes still dissecting the grim tableau. The insistent ring, however, persisted, a jagged intrusion into your mental sanctuary. Reluctantly, you snatched the receiver. Seth, it's the detective. The voice on the other end, gruff and edged with a triumphant certainty, cut through the static. We've got him. Picked up a low-level operator, goes by Silas. Known for petty theft, a history of B&E. He was seen near the latest incident, lingering. Had some of the victim's personal effects on him. What are you talking about? The detective's voice hardened, dismissive. He confessed to being in the area, panicked, took a few trinkets. Said he saw someone else, but that's just a lie, isn't it? Classic misdirection. We have a solid case. Looks like a robbery gone wrong, a desperate act. You felt a familiar tightening in your chest, the frustration of being unheard, of seeing what others could not. A petty thief, clumsy and impulsive, capable of such meticulous, almost ritualistic violence? Silas didn't fit the elegant horror. The detective, blinded by the easy narrative, was chasing a phantom. You ended the call, the receiver clicking back into its cradle with a sound like a gavel striking down a verdict you vehemently opposed. Your gaze returned to the photographs, to the intricate lines that spoke volumes. Silas, a desperate grab and run, wouldn't leave such a calling card. This was personal, an intimate assertion of power, not a byproduct of panic. Your fingers traced the edge of an old case file, the one that had ended your career. The initial victim, years ago, bore the same mark. The official investigation back then, much like this one, had stumbled, grasping at obvious culprits, missing the true predator. You wouldn't let it happen again. A name surfaced from the depths of your memory, a minor detail from the original case, a discarded lead. A disgruntled business partner of the first victim, a man named Sterling Vance, who had lost everything in a failed venture the victim had fronted. He had been cleared due to an airtight alibi, but his financial records, you recalled, had hinted at a desperate, almost obsessive need for capital. He was known for hoarding, for hiding assets. Its facade, weathered stone and ornate ironwork, spoke of forgotten wealth and discreet transactions. You knew the protocols, the labyrinthine bureaucracy. You found the retired clerk, a woman whose memory was a fragile tapestry, woven with threads of discretion and forgotten faces. You didn't push, you didn't threaten. Instead, you spoke of shared history, of the quiet dignity of her years of service, of the respect due to the institution. You mentioned the signature, a subtle hint that this was not merely about a common thief, but something far more insidious. A quiet nod, a tremor in her hand as she pressed a worn ledger into your grasp. A name, a box number. Vance. Row upon row of metal boxes, each a sealed secret, stretched into the gloom. You located Vance's box, a modest, unassuming rectangle. The lock, a relic of another era, yielded with a soft click. Inside, you expected ledgers, perhaps hidden deeds. They weren't architectural plans, nor engineering blueprints. They were diagrams of human anatomy, specifically the superficial layers of skin, marked with precise, almost surgical lines. The patterns mirrored the signature on the victims. Beneath the schematics, a small, leather-bound journal lay nestled. Its pages were filled with elegant, obsessive script. Not a diary of feelings, but a meticulous record of patterns, of symbols, of the art of leaving a mark. The entries spoke of masterpieces, of personal statements, of etching permanence onto the canvas of fleeting life. No mention of Silas, no desperate need for money. This was a different beast entirely. A single, loose photograph slipped from between the journal's pages. It was an old, faded image of a young man, perhaps in his early 20s, standing proudly beside a sculpture he had created. The sculpture was abstract, jagged, and upon its surface, you could discern the embryonic form of the very same intricate pattern now etched onto the victims. But it wasn't Vance. The face in the photograph was unfamiliar, younger, more intense. A student, perhaps, of some forgotten art. Silas, the petty thief, was merely a ripple on the surface. This journal, these schematics, this photograph, they were not the ravings of a desperate man. The killer was not just after money or revenge. They were after something far more profound, far more horrifying. An enduring legacy, a statement etched in blood and skin. The air in the vault, once merely cool, now felt frigid. The weight of the discovery pressing down on you. The face in the photograph, a ghost from Vance's past, now seemed to stare directly at you, a silent challenge. The real game, you realized, had just begun. You felt a familiar tightening in your chest, the frustration of being unheard, of seeing what others could not. The delicate, precise etchings on the victim's skin screamed of a different hand, a colder, more deliberate purpose. The official narrative was a blunt instrument, incapable of grasping the intricate, almost reverent nature of the wounds. You knew, with a certainty that gnawed at your bones, that the killer hadn't just returned. They had been here all along, a phantom weaving through the city's forgotten corners. Its address, tucked away in the margins of a decades-old police report, had always seemed an anomaly, a detail too mundane to matter. Now it hummed with a quiet resonance. The building itself was a monument to forgotten wealth, its limestone facade weathered, gargoyles leering down with chipped, indifferent eyes. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged paper and dormant dust. A clerk, whose spectacles seemed perched on the very edge of his nose, eyed you with the weary suspicion reserved for those who stir ancient sediments. You presented the outdated warrant, a relic from your last official days, polished with a lie about a lost family heirloom. He sighed, a sound like rustling parchment, and led you through a maze of dimly lit corridors, past heavy, ornate doors that whispered of untold secrets. The vault door, a colossal disk of burnished steel, groaned open, revealing an inner sanctum of hushed quiet. Rows of polished brass boxes lined the walls, each a sealed casket of personal history. You felt the weight of countless lives, their legacies compressed into these small, metallic chambers. Box 713, you murmured, the number echoing strangely in the vast space. The clerk produced a heavy iron key, its teeth worn smooth by years of infrequent use. You pulled out the box. It was surprisingly light, not full of gold or jewels, but a single leather-bound journal. Its cover faded to a soft, almost imperceptible brown. It wasn't a diary, but a ledger, recording obscure land deeds and minor inheritances, dating back to the city's founding. You flipped through brittle pages, the ink a testament to fading intentions. Most entries were unremarkable, a dry chronicle of forgotten transactions. Then, halfway through, nestled between two entries about a defunct textile mill and a parcel of riverfront property, your gaze snagged on a small, hand-drawn sketch. The etchings on the victim's skin. You had dismissed them as abstract, almost random ritualistic markings. But now, looking at this sketch, a lightning bolt of realization struck. The delicate, precise lines on the first victim, the almost identical yet subtly different marks on the second and the third. They weren't random. They were pieces. You spread them on the dusty floor of the vault, next to the open ledger. Your breath hitched. The mark on the first victim of the new spree, a jagged curve. The second, a sharp, almost triangular point. The third, a flowing, sinuous line. You stared at the bird in the ledger, then at the fragments on the photographs, your mind racing, trying to overlay them, to fit the puzzle pieces together. The bird was incomplete. Its head was missing, one wing truncated, the feather oddly detached. But the fragments, the curve, the point, the line, they could be parts of that missing head, that truncated wing, that detached feather. Suddenly, the symbol on the ledger wasn't just a bird. It was a crest. An ancient, forgotten crest. You remembered a lecture from your academy days, a dusty tome on municipal history, the crest of the city's founding family, a lineage believed to have died out centuries ago, its symbols lost to time. It was a bird of prey, wings spread, clutching a quill, signifying both dominion and knowledge. The etchings weren't random violence. They were an assembly, each victim a living canvas for a piece of this forgotten crest. The killer wasn't just taking lives. They were meticulously reconstructing a symbol, an emblem of a long-lost claim. Your eyes scanned the ledger again, frantically searching for any mention of the crest, the family, anything to confirm this burgeoning, terrifying theory. And there, scrawled in faded ink at the bottom of the page with the bird sketch, a single cryptic phrase: "The right of the quill, restored." The air in the vault grew heavy, suffocating. You were no longer chasing a ghost. You were chasing a claim. The names etched upon its brittle surface, the dates, the specific symbols, they coalesced into a lineage, a dark inheritance. This wasn't merely a list of victims. It was a roster of keepers, of guardians, of those who held fragments of a legacy the killer now sought to reassemble. One name in particular snagged your gaze, a minor figure you'd dismissed years ago, an eccentric historian who frequented the city's more obscure archives. He was known for his fascination with industrial decline, for collecting the detritus of forgotten eras. A quick, urgent mental cross-reference with your fragmented memories, a digital flicker on the small, secure device in your pocket, and an address materialized. An abandoned factory, a hulking skeleton on the city's periphery. The blueprint didn't just map a series of crimes. It charted a course to the killer's hidden network, to the silent architects of this gruesome tableau. Rust bled from its corrugated skin, staining the air with the metallic tang of decay. You parked the vehicle a discreet distance away, its engine ticking softly in the sudden, profound quiet. You approached on foot, your breath pluming in the crisp evening air. The perimeter fence, a rusted mockery of security, offered a gap where time and neglect had done their work. Inside, the ground was a treacherous mosaic of cracked concrete and stubborn weeds. The cavernous main structure swallowed the last vestiges of daylight. A single, weak light source pulsed within, a solitary beacon in the encroaching gloom, accompanied by a low, insistent hum, like a forgotten heart still beating. A service entrance, its lock a mangled ornament, yielded to a gentle push. The groan of ancient hinges echoed through the vast, empty space. The air inside was a cloying blend of damp earth, industrial solvents, and the distinct, acrid scent of old paper. Dust motes danced in the solitary beam, thick as powdered snow. You moved through the factory's belly, your footsteps muffled by the accumulated grime, your senses hyper-alert. Then you saw him. Hunched over a workbench, amidst a chaotic constellation of ancient machinery, rolled maps and leather-bound ledgers, was the archivist. His back was to you, a frail silhouette against the dim light, his movements precise, almost ritualistic, as he meticulously sorted through a pile of yellowed documents. His hair, what little remained, was a wispy halo of white. "You shouldn't be here." Your voice, a low rumble, shattered the stillness. The archivist startled, his head snapping up. His eyes, magnified by thick spectacles, were like chips of flint, sharp and surprisingly alert for his age. He was thin, almost translucent, his skin stretched taut over sharp angles. He knew your name. Not just your name, but the context. your reputation, or lack thereof. The new murders, you pressed, ignoring the barb. The old case. They're connected. You know something. He offered a thin, mirthless smile. Knowledge is a burden, detective. One few are equipped to carry. He gestured vaguely at the stacks of documents surrounding him. I merely chronicle. I preserve. Some legacies, you see, demand to be remembered, to be reclaimed. Reclaimed by a killer? You countered, stepping closer. Your gaze swept across the workbench, searching, analyzing. Among the relics, a small, intricately carved wooden box caught your eye. Etched into its lid was a symbol, subtly hidden, yet undeniably present. Identical to a marginalia on the blueprint you just pulled from the vault. The true inheritors, the archivist corrected, his voice gaining a strange, fervent quality. They merely correct the historical record, right the wrongs of those who forgot their place. He shifted, his hand moving subtly toward something beneath the workbench. He reacted with surprising speed, a gnarled hand slapping down, not to strike, but to cover a specific section of the workbench. A loud, metallic clang echoed through the factory as he tried to block your access, his strength belying his frail frame. You wrestled briefly, a silent, desperate struggle for control. His grip, though weak, was tenacious. In the brief, desperate flurry, his hand slipped, revealing not a weapon, but a hidden compartment, spring-loaded, beneath the workbench's surface. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, lay a small, tarnished silver locket. You snatched it, your fingers brushing against his. He hissed, a sound devoid of humanity. You flipped open the locket. Inside, 2 faded photographs, sepia-toned ghosts of a bygone era. One face, younger, less cruel, but unmistakably the killer from your past. The other, a younger version of the archivist, standing shoulder to shoulder with the killer, a shared, knowing smile on their faces. A deeper, more intimate connection than you had ever imagined. This wasn't just a chronicler. He was a co-conspirator, a blood relation. Before you could react, before the weight of this new revelation could fully settle, a high-pitched, piercing whine erupted from a concealed speaker near the archivist's station. It was a silent alarm, designed to carry far beyond the factory walls, a siren for unseen ears. You knew then that your time was up. You had been seen, identified, and now you were trapped. You sprinted, the locket clutched tight, the piercing sound tearing at your ears. The hunt had just become a chase, and you, Seth Corbin, were no longer just the hunter. Reclaimed by a killer? You countered, stepping closer. Etched into its lid was a symbol, subtly hidden, yet undeniably present. Identical to a marginalia on the faded blueprint you'd found in the city archives. A twisted knot of interlocking lines, ancient and obscure, yet now screaming with significance. You picked up the box. Its weight was deceptive, heavy for its size. No lock was visible, but your fingers traced a faint seam along one side. A hidden mechanism. You pressed, prodded, a lifetime of picking apart intricate puzzles guiding your touch. With a soft click, the lid sprang open, a whisper of old wood releasing its secret. Inside, nestled on a bed of aged velvet, lay not jewels, but a single brittle parchment. The same cryptic knot symbol was embossed at the bottom, alongside a name that made your breath hitch. A name you recognized from the original cold case files. A name belonging to a distant relative of the first victim. Not the victim themselves, but a figure peripheral to the official investigation, dismissed as inconsequential. This wasn't just a clue. It was an invitation. The killer wasn't hiding. They were leading you. Each step you took, they had foreseen. You knew the place. The deed, though old, looked valid. It had been intentionally left for you to find. Hours later, the sun a memory swallowed by the city's concrete maw, you stood before the colossal steel door of the vault. Its surface, scarred by time, reflected the dim glow of your flashlight. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and dust, a metallic tang that promised antiquity and forgotten secrets. The building's custodian, a stoic silver-haired man who remembered your face from a lifetime ago, had eyed you with a mixture of suspicion and grudging respect before granting access. "Never seen this one opened," he'd grumbled, handing you a heavy, ornate key. "Belonged to a peculiar family." The key turned with a groaning protest, a sound that echoed through the cavernous space. Each number, a testament to a life, a fortune, a secret. You moved with deliberate purpose, the parchment clutched in your hand, guiding you to a specific box. Number 317. It seemed no different from the others, yet your instinct screamed its significance. The small key, a twin to the one that opened the main vault door, slipped into the lock. Inside, a wooden tray slid out, revealing not bundles of cash or stacks of deeds, but a collection of journals. Leather-bound, their pages yellowed, filled with elegant looping script. You pulled one out, its cover adorned with the familiar twisted knot symbol. The handwriting was unmistakable. The same hand that penned the deed, the hand of the distant relative of the first victim. As you flipped through the pages, the words blurred into a horrifying tapestry. Not just a diary, but a manifesto. A meticulously detailed account of the cleansing of a bloodline, a twisted legacy of perceived injustice and betrayal. The first victim, the one who cost you everything, was merely the beginning. Each subsequent murder, each eerily similar crime, was a deliberate, calculated step in this macabre inheritance. Then you saw it. A photograph tucked between two pages, brittle with age. It showed the original victim, smiling, alongside another figure. A younger man, his features familiar, though softened by time. The man in the photo. A low, resonant click echoed from the main vault door. It wasn't the sound of it closing, but of its internal lock engaging. You spun around, your hand instinctively reaching for the worn grip of your service weapon, a relic you still carried. It was the detective, your former colleague. His eyes, usually sharp and analytical, now held a disturbing gleam. In his hand, he held a small, antique pistol, its barrel glinting dully. You breathed, the pieces finally snapping into place with sickening clarity. The symbols, the meticulous planning, the way the cases had always seemed to elude you, yet circle back to your failures. He hadn't been investigating, he had been orchestrating. Generations of injustice, Seth. The others. Loose ends, ripples from his vile actions. I simply finished what my ancestors started, a legacy of purification. And you were merely a convenient scapegoat, a disgraced detective, perfect for absorbing the blame for crimes no one else understood. The truth, stark and brutal, settled in your bones. The killer wasn't some phantom from your past, but a ghost from your present. A man you had trusted. A man who had meticulously woven a web of deceit around you, using your own downfall as a shield. The shocking motive wasn't just revenge. It was a twisted, hereditary obsession. A serial killer lineage hidden in plain sight. With you, Seth Corbin, as the final, unwitting pawn in their gruesome game. The game had changed. And you, Seth, were no longer just a player. You were the last piece on the board. The shocking motive wasn't just revenge. It was a perversion of justice. A twisted echo of a tragedy that had scarred not just your career, but the very fabric of this city. The realization, a bitter pill on your tongue, propelled you forward, a cold fire in your gut. There was no time for contemplation, only action. The pieces clicked, the pattern emerged from the fog of your past failures, and the final destination became brutally clear. A place of buried secrets, of forgotten wealth, of a legacy meticulously dismantled. The night air, sharp with the scent of impending rain, stung your cheeks as you moved, a phantom in the urban sprawl. Your breath plumed, a fleeting ghost in the glow of distant streetlights. The coordinates you'd pieced together from fragmented documents, from cryptic whispers in old case files, led you to the heart of the old financial district. A hulking granite structure, its facade adorned with crumbling gargoyles, loomed against the bruised sky. This was it. The address of a long-defunct bank, a relic of an era when fortunes were built and lost with a handshake and a signature. The lock, ancient but robust, yielded to the practiced finesse of your tools, a muscle memory from a life you thought you'd left behind. The descent felt endless, a journey into the city's forgotten depths, a plunge into the killer's meticulously crafted underworld. The hum of unseen machinery vibrated faintly through the floor, a low thrum that hinted at power, at purpose. Then, a faint glow, pulsing with an unnatural rhythm, pierced the gloom below. You quickened your pace, your old boots echoing on the concrete steps. The stairwell opened into a vast subterranean chamber. Rows of tarnished brass safety deposit boxes lined the walls, each a silent testament to forgotten fortunes, to lives lived and ended. But your gaze was drawn to the center of the cavernous space. There, bathed in the stark, clinical light of a portable work lamp, stood the killer. Their back was to you, hunched over a heavy, ornate vault door, its circular mechanism exposed, glinting like a monstrous eye. It was a colleague, the one who had inadvertently offered you the first thread of this tangled web. Their presence solidified the killer's grim intent. This was not just about you. It was about erasing every trace, every connection to the past they sought to bury. "Stop," you commanded, your voice cutting through the heavy air, raw and unwavering. The killer froze, a wrench suspended in their gloved hand. Slowly, deliberately, they turned. A trait I once admired, now merely an inconvenience. "What are you doing?" you asked, though the answer was already forming, a monstrous shape in your mind. The detective gestured vaguely at the bound colleague. "Ensuring no loose ends, this one. Too curious for their own good." They started asking questions about the old property records, about the original owners of this very building. Your gaze swept from the colleague to the vault door, then back to the detective. It wasn't just revenge, was it? Not just about my failure or your perceived slights. It's about this. You gestured around the vault. This place. What's inside? A slow, predatory smile spread across the detective's face. "Clever, Seth. You always were." "Yes, this place. This vault. It holds the true legacy. Not just of the family I sought to avenge, but of the empire they built. You believe they were murdered, their assets seized, and you're here to reclaim what was lost. Reclaim, restore, and redistribute," the detective corrected, their voice hardening. "Their last remaining asset. The true wealth, hidden from plain sight, untouchable by the vultures who picked them clean. This isn't just gold, Seth. This is truth. This is leverage. This is the means to expose every corrupt official, every crooked deal, every injustice perpetrated against my family." They pointed the wrench at the vault door, its mechanism a complex array of gears and levers. In a few more minutes, the final lock will disengage. And then, the true work begins. The work you should have done, all those years ago. You took a step forward, your hand instinctively going to the empty holster at your hip, a ghost of your former life. You're going to kill them all, aren't you? The descendants of those you blame. And you're going to frame me for it, just like you've been doing all along. The detective chuckled, a dry, humorless sound that echoed off the vault walls. A poetic symmetry, wouldn't you agree? The disgraced detective, finally snapping, taking out his revenge on the city that broke him. The evidence is all there, Seth. Your fingerprints on the weapons, your motives carefully constructed in the public eye, your past failures, your present obsession. A perfect narrative. Your eyes narrowed, scanning the room. The colleague was stirring, groaning faintly. The detective had planned every detail, every angle, every escape route. The final act was not just opening the vault. It was cementing your downfall, destroying your last shred of humanity. "It ends here," you stated, your voice low, resonant with a newfound resolve. No more victims. No more lies. The detective merely scoffed, turning back to the vault door. "You're unarmed, Seth, and I have a timetable to keep." The wrench descended, aimed at a critical component of the vault mechanism, a final definitive strike. The metallic clink of the wrench against steel was sharp, final. The air crackled with the raw tension of an unraveling future. You lunged, a desperate instinctual movement, knowing that if the vault opened, if the detective completed this last heinous act, there would be no coming back for anyone. The air, already thick with the dust of forgotten years and the scent of fear, seemed to crack, not with a sound, but with the sudden, unbearable strain of a taut wire finally snapping. You braced yourself, unarmed, a breath held captive in your lungs, waiting for the inevitable. The detective's back was to you, a silhouette of grim purpose against the ancient, unyielding face of the vault. But the thud that followed wasn't the vault door yielding. It was the detective, collapsing. A flash of movement, a blur of dark uniforms had swarmed the confined space. A taser's sharp electrical crackle still hung in the air, a phantom hum against your eardrums. The wrench, now inert, lay beside the prone form of the detective, his body rigid, then slack. You watched, your muscles screaming in protest as you slowly uncoiled from your defensive crouch. His gaze met yours across the short distance, a silent acknowledgement passing between you. No words were needed for the grim understanding that now settled. "Seth," the colleague's voice was low, strained. "You were right. About all of it. Right." The word felt hollow. The truth, now a palpable weight, pressed down on you. The detective had been aiming for the locking mechanism, a final, desperate attempt to seal away whatever lay within, or perhaps to destroy it. But the strike had been interrupted. You looked at the detective, now being carefully rolled onto his back. His eyes, though unfocused, held a flicker of something ancient and bitter, a deep-seated resentment that had festered for decades. The phantom killer. Something in there connected him to the past. Old case files. Your old case files, Seth. Annotated, cross-referenced. A meticulously kept journal spanning 30 years. He believed he was correcting an injustice. 30 years. A lifetime of calculated vengeance, hidden behind a badge. He hadn't just returned. He had never left. He had simply changed tactics, evolving, becoming more cunning, more entrenched. The realization was a bitter pill. Your career, your reputation, sacrificed at the altar of this man's warped crusade. Or keep from us. Another officer, quiet and efficient, began to examine the vault's intricate locking system, the damage from the wrench superficial, not critical. "It looks like he was trying to disable the manual override, sir. If he could have locked it down, it would have taken days to get in without damaging the contents." "Contents," you repeated, the word hanging heavy. Your gaze drifted to the detective again. He had stirred, a guttural groan escaping his lips. His eyes, now more lucid, found yours. A conviction that even in defeat, his cause was righteous. "You never understood, Seth." The detective rasped, his voice raw, struggling against the restraints. They were all connected, every single one. A web of corruption, I was simply cutting the threads. By killing innocent people? You countered, your voice rising, the carefully constructed calm beginning to fray. Families, lives destroyed. For your definition of justice? He merely offered a twisted, humorless smile, his gaze shifting to the vault. The final piece. The ledger. It holds the names. The real names. The ones who escaped. But now, it's too late for them. Too late for you. The ledger. The missing link. He wasn't trying to destroy it, but to secure it. To keep it from you. From the system he so deeply distrusted, even as he worked within it. He wanted to be the sole arbiter of who saw its contents, who faced his brand of justice. You stood, the adrenaline beginning its slow, painful ebb, leaving behind a profound weariness. The colleague placed a hand on your shoulder, a gesture of quiet support. "We'll get it open, Seth," he assured you, his voice firm, "and we'll find out what he was protecting." The phantom killer, finally tangible, finally caged. But the true weight of it, the decades of unresolved suffering, the cost to so many lives, including your own, was just beginning to settle. The air, once charged with violent intent, now felt heavy with the lingering echo of broken trust and a justice long delayed. The fight was over, but the processing had just begun. The resolution was here, but the aftermath would stretch on, an unwritten chapter. The cold, metallic scent of the vault still clung to the air, a phantom whisper of the secrets it had held for so long. You watched the detective, the architect of so much quiet devastation, disappear up the narrow staircase, his form swallowed by the shadows that danced just beyond the reach of the vault's stark lights. The clinking of his restraints was the last sound, a final, definitive chime in a symphony of sorrow that had spanned decades. Silence descended, heavy and profound, filling the void left by his departure. No more hidden compartments, no more macabre trophies. Just the stark, unyielding truth. A colleague, his face etched with a weariness that mirrored your own, approached, a hand settling briefly on your shoulder. "It's over, Seth," he murmured, his voice a low current against the vault's ancient stone. You felt the subtle shift in his tone, a new respect woven into the familiar fabric of his address. It was not an apology, but an acknowledgement, a quiet recognition of the truth you had chased through years of scorn and doubt. You merely nodded, the words caught somewhere between your throat and the raw ache in your chest. The phantom killer, finally tangible, finally caged. But the true weight of it, the decades of unresolved suffering, the cost to so many lives, including your own, pressed down upon you. It was a victory, yes, but one steeped in the bitter residue of what had been lost. The faces of the victims, young and old, flashed behind your eyes. Spectral echoes of lives unjustly extinguished. And then, the face of the young woman whose case had shattered your world, whose memory had been a relentless, silent tormentor. Her justice, finally served, felt like a fragile bloom pushing through cracked earth. The urge to simply walk away, to leave this place and never look back, was a powerful current, but something held you rooted. A duty, perhaps, not to the system, but to the ghosts you had carried. His expression was solemn, his eyes holding a depth of understanding that surprised you. "Seth," he began, his voice raspy with fatigue, "the chief wants to see you. There's a lot to discuss. Your name, your record. It won't be easy, but the truth has a way of clearing the air." He paused, his gaze steady. "You did good, Corbin. You always said he was still out there. We should have listened." The words hung in the air, a balm to wounds you hadn't realized were still weeping. It wasn't the full restoration, not yet, but it was the first stone laid on a path back to something resembling absolution. You felt the rigid knot in your shoulders loosen, a tension you hadn't known you carried for so long finally beginning to unravel. The city stretched before you, awakening with the low hum of traffic and the distant cry of gulls. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp pavement and the promise of rain. You took a deep breath, the oxygen filling your lungs, sharp and invigorating. The weight of the badge, the expectations, the failures, they no longer felt like shackles. They were scars, yes, indelible marks etched onto the canvas of your soul, but scars that spoke of survival, of perseverance. The disgrace had been a crucible, forging a different kind of strength within you, a resolve untainted by institutional politics or the clamor for accolades. You found yourself walking, not towards home, but simply away. Away from the building, away from the lingering specter of the past, towards the river. The water flowed, ceaseless and indifferent, mirroring the passage of time. You stood by the railing, watching the current pull at stray leaves and debris, carrying them onward. The world felt sharper, more vibrant. The laughter of a child in a nearby park, the aroma of brewing coffee from a street vendor, the vibrant hues of a blossoming tree. They registered with a new clarity, a newfound appreciation. You hadn't truly seen the world in years, not beyond the lens of suspicion and sorrow. The path ahead was uncertain, but the urge to simply be, to exist without the crushing burden of the unsolved, was a powerful, liberating force. Perhaps a different kind of work awaited you, one that leveraged your unique perspective without tethering you to the very system that had broken you. A consultant, a quiet observer, a voice for those unheard. The sun broke through the clouds, painting the river in streaks of gold and silver. You closed your eyes, feeling its warmth on your face. You were not entirely whole, perhaps you never would be, but you were no longer broken. The killer was caged, the truth revealed, and a new beginning, however tentative, awaited.